Okay, guys, so for reading today, all you have to do is listen along to, I think we're gonna just do two chapters. You can read along while you listen, and then you'll answer a rap question. I'll show you that on the next slide. Remember, we are about to hear the story from the guests, Lucas and Eleanor, about how they actually fought one of the fires, the river complex fire, that Josh and his mom saw the damage of when they were driving through. And they were like, "You never told us that," Holly and her mom. And we're about to hear that story. So, without further ado, I'm going to take away my face so you don't get distracted by that. But we're going to listen and then answer a rap question. All right, here we go.
Chapter 9. It was July of 2015. 3 years ago, Eleanor began, her eyes filled with a faraway look, like in her mind she was traveling back to that day. A hiker had spotted a fire way up in the hills. She called 911, and they called us. In 5 minutes, Lucas and the ground team were on board the helicopter, 10 firefighters in all. I got them into the air, and 15 minutes later they were on the mountain, ready to go to work. Lucas picked up from there. Our job on the ground is to try to contain the fire, stop it from spreading. But when we're way up in a forest or far from roads, we don't have water or hoses. We can't drive our tanker trucks into the wild, and there aren't any fire hydrants. So we use chainsaws and axes and saws to clear away trees and brush, scrape everything away down to the dirt. It's called building a fire line. A dirt path around the fire, maybe 2 or 3 feet wide. He picked up his fork again and drew a circle around what was left of his rice and beans. We're trying to take away the fuel the fire needs to spread. A wildfire is like a hungry animal. It feeds itself on things that will burn. Trees, brush. That's its fuel. Take away its fuel, and the fire will weaken, then starve. Like that time at basketball practice, Josh thought, when I hadn't eaten breakfast. He ran himself so hard he almost fainted. Greg practically had to carry him off the court. Most fires don't give us too much trouble, Lucas went on. We put them out quickly. And at first, this river complex fire didn't worry us so much. Everything was calm. Then came the winds. Hot winds, very strong. They're called Santa Anas. Diablo winds, Eleanor said softly. Josh shuddered. He knew from taking Spanish what Diablo meant. Devil. The winds whipped up the flames, Lucas said. In 10 minutes, the fire had tripled in size. We could see it in the distance, that angry orange glow getting bigger and brighter. The wind started to pick up big burning embers, chunks of wood and ash. These fire bombs were landing all around us. I knew we had to get out of there, and quick. We radioed for help, and Eleanor came to pick us up. Lucas's words were painting pictures in Josh's mind. Pictures scarier than any video. He could see the flames. He could hear the thwack, thwack, thwack of the Huey helicopter and the roar of the wildfire. He could practically feel the hot wind blowing in his face. The main fire was still about a half-mile away, so I was able to land the Huey, Eleanor said. Lucas and the team got on board, but now the winds were blowing at 60, 70 miles per hour. Not even the Huey can take off in winds like that. The flames were closing in all around us. We were trapped. Josh's heart hammered. He remembered when he and Mom were riding bikes one time, and a car swerved and hit Mom. She fell off her bike and badly hurt her leg. Josh had never felt so scared. But even if he multiplied that fear by 10, he didn't think it would come close to how it would feel to be in the middle of a wildfire, with no escape. Lucas's voice dropped down. In a wildfire like that, all you want to do is run. But when the flames are moving that fast, you usually can't outrun them. You have to try to find a big open space without trees or anything that can burn, like a ball field, or a big parking lot, or a river," Holly interrupted. Eleanor smiled at Holly. "Smart kid. A wide river can work like a fire line, but even that isn't always safe if the fires are too big and the winds are too strong. I've seen flames leap across a river, and the smoke can get so thick." "So what can you do?" Josh asked. "At that point," Lucas said, "we knew the Huey would be lost, and our only hope was to use our fire shelters. We each keep one strapped to our backpacks, folded in a rectangle cube the size of a shoebox." He told them how the fire shelters looked like very light sleeping bags or small thin tents, but they were made from fabric that could resist heat up to 800 degrees. "You wrap the fire shelter around you, drop onto the ground on your stomach, and hold it tight so the fire doesn't rip it off when it goes over you." Josh's mouth dropped open. "So you lie there? Inside the fire?" He squirmed a little in his chair. "That's right," Eleanor said. "And the fire shelters work?" Mom asked. "Most times," Lucas said. "But you have to make sure you're in a spot that's clean. Just dirt or rock. No plants or grass around you that can burn. Because if the fire gets underneath you, the shelter will melt. Or even with just a small gap, the wind will tear off the shelter. And the hot gases." Everyone was very quiet for a moment. "We weren't sure where we could go," Lucas continued. "Then I noticed some deer running down the hill. Squirrels and rabbits, too. Animals have a good instinct for where to go in a fire. We went in the same direction as them and were able to get to some clear land in time to deploy our fire shelters. And—" His voice trailed off and Eleanor picked up where he'd left off. "We all dropped down and huddled together. We had just a few seconds before we heard the fire racing down the mountain toward us. The sound. It's like a jet plane is coming in for a landing, right on your head. Then the flames are on top of you. The fire sucks the air out of your lungs, burns your throat. You feel like you're being cooked alive. All you want to do is get up and run, but if you do—" Josh closed his eyes and forced his brain to go blank. He couldn't think about what it would be like to be belly down on the ground while a fire roared on top of him. "How long did you have to stay like that?" Mom asked softly. "A minute, maybe less," Lucas said. "Felt like hours, but then it was over." "How terrible," Mom whispered. "It was," Lucas said. "We've been through some bad fires, but that one still gives me nightmares." Eleanor nodded. "But something happened to our team that day," she said. "We came together, got each other through, and now it almost feels—" Her voice trailed off like she wasn't sure how to explain how she felt. "Like we're tied together," Lucas picked up. "Like there's an invisible rope connecting us, always." Eleanor smiled. "That's exactly how it feels." Josh knew that feeling. It was like after a tough basketball game when he and Greg and the guys had fought for every point. The team always felt super close afterward. They finished up their dinner, everyone a little quieter, and said goodbye to Lucas and Eleanor. Later that night, when Josh was trying to fall asleep, the fire shelter story kept replaying in his mind. To be inside a wildfire and survive, it seemed impossible. But he just met people who had done it. Chapter 10. Monday, July 23rd, 2018. Around 7:15 a.m. Holly's house. Josh woke up early Monday. Mom was still fast asleep in the bed next to his. Josh eyed his duffel bag, which sat on the floor, almost all packed. He and Mom were leaving today at noon, driving to the airport and flying back to New Jersey. Holly had helped Josh pack last night. "Bubbles is going to miss you," she'd said, folding one of Josh's t-shirts. "I think she might hide in your suitcase." "I'd love that," Josh said, smiling as he pictured a giant lizard tail sticking out of the duffel. but I might have a problem going through airport security. That cracked them both up. He was definitely going to miss Bubbles, Josh thought now as he tossed around in the bed. And he already missed King. The snake still hadn't shown up. But Josh also couldn't wait to get back to his real life. He wanted to see Dad, shoot hoops with Greg, jump into their pool. He lay there a few minutes more, already dreading the endless drive to the airport. Finally, he slid out of bed. He figured he'd go get Bubbles and wait on the porch for everyone to get up. Josh threw on his clothes and went downstairs to the kitchen. Aunt Nicole had baked blueberry muffins last night. He grabbed one and took a bite. Crazy good! Then stuffed the whole thing into his mouth. He was helping himself to a second muffin when he spotted Aunt Nicole's laptop sitting open on the table. He eyed it, thinking about the Yankees. Had he really not checked his scores in a whole week? He sat down at the table and brushed the crumbs from his fingers. He knew Aunt Nicole wouldn't mind if he used her computer for a minute. A few clicks later, he was scrolling through the scores. Yes! The Yanks had creamed the Red Sox last night. He checked on a few more games, and then, almost without thinking, he Googled Dad's name. He was sure no one was writing those garbage articles anymore. That's why he almost choked on his muffin as he saw the headline of the first article. Tim Wallace, New Jersey banker, sentenced to 8 months in jail. Josh laughed out loud. What a joke! If anyone should go to jail, it was whoever wrote these lies. But then Josh saw where this article was from. The New York Times. The New York Times was not a trashy newspaper. Mom and Dad always said it was the best newspaper in the world. What was going on? Josh started to read the article, but then he heard voices. Mom, Aunt Nicole, Holly. Everyone was awake and heading downstairs. Almost without thinking, Josh pushed away from the table and hopped up. He rushed into the little bathroom off the kitchen and gently shut the door. Voices filled the kitchen. Pancakes or omelets? Aunt Nicole asked. The fridge opened and shut. Josh likes pancakes, Holly said. Where is Josh? Mom said. I thought he'd be down here. 2 muffins are missing, Aunt Nicole said with a laugh. So we know he's come through here. I bet he's with Bubbles, Holly said. I'll go get him. The screen door squeaked open, then slammed closed. Sweat trickled down Josh's back. It was broiling in this little bathroom. He had to get out of here. He was about to flush the toilet to make it seem he'd been in here for a reason. But then he heard Aunt Nicole gasp. Trish, come over here. What? Mom said. This article in the New York Times. It's about Tim. It was up on my computer. Josh froze. He realized he'd left the article open on the screen. The article is from this morning, Aunt Nicole said. Someone must have been using my computer before we came down. You think it was Josh? Mom said, her voice dropping down. Josh's whole body started to tingle, like when that car hit Mom on her bike, and when he saw Dad being taken away in handcuffs. It got very quiet. The only sound was a fly buzzing around the window. Josh pictured Mom and Aunt Nicole huddled around the computer. I have to call Tim, Mom finally said, her voice filled with worry. We were going to tell Josh everything when we got back. Tell me everything? Josh thought. That meant Mom hadn't been telling Josh the whole story so far. He thought back to Greg's dumb joke. Your dad probably won't have to go to jail for too long. Maybe he hadn't been joking at all. Maybe he had known something Josh did not. Suddenly, Josh didn't know what to believe. He took a breath, braced himself, and slowly opened the bathroom door. When he stepped into the kitchen, Aunt Nicole jumped a little, like Josh had popped out of a cabinet. Is it true what that article says? Josh asked Mom. His voice was louder than he meant it to be, and it cracked a little. Dad really did steal that money? Josh, Mom said, standing up and stepping toward him. He didn't steal the money. He broke some laws, yes, but it's not what you think. Is he going to jail? Josh asked. Let's call Dad, Mom answered. He'll explain everything. You'll see. Just tell me, Mom, Josh said, fighting tears. Is Dad going to jail? Mom's voice dropped to a whisper. Yes, she said. He is.
Whew. Okay, so there you go. That is the 2 chapters that you had to listen to today. So, um, that's a pretty dramatic ending. I can't wait for us to be back together on Monday, weather permitting, and for us to see what's happening and why Josh's dad is going to jail. Oh my goodness. Right now, what I am going to do is I'm going to briefly talk about and tell you what the RAP question is. And then what you can do is you are welcome to go to Schoology and to check that out. It'll be titled Chapters 9 and 10 RAP question. And because I'm feeling very nice on this asynchronous Friday, I am going to even bring up the page that you can find the answers on. And then, so if you want to pause this video, here, actually, let's see. Nope. I'm actually going to say here, this will be where your answer is somewhere on this page. My question is, so we heard a lot of really interesting things about fire lines and fire shelters. I would like to know, what did Lucas say was very important about when you use the fire shelter, and what part of the fire triangle is it? That's an extra hint. Is what do you have to avoid when you're using a fire shelter? It's one of the parts of the fire triangle. All right, so it's somewhere on this page. I will have sentence stems on the next slide. If you need to, go answer that RAP question on Schoology. Good luck, guys. Remember to turn this question in to be marked as here today for attendance. All right, cool. There you go. Pause that video.